We need it. Like oxygen. It's why we breathe it. Like water. Like
Hey everyone, welcome to our podcast, Women in Tech Like a Boss. And as always, we bring you fascinating guests every week. And this week, we've got Kamael Ann Sugrim. She got her MBA from Stanford, and she's focused on this really new concept in tech around HR to help people resolve workplace conflict.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, we're always excited. And we hear that you've recently won an award too, and that you're about to start a new crowdfunding campaign. So we want to make sure we tell our listeners all about that as we go through the podcast. Are you ready to dig in?
Yes, I'm absolutely ready. Let's go.
Fantastic. So we love these female founders in tech because they can get it done too. And so tell us a little bit about People First and what stage your company's at.
Sure. People First is a startup. We are about a year and a half old, and we have launched a product that is a resolution-based software platform focused on resolving workplace conflict. It's very exciting because it's a platform that works both for the employee and for the employer, and we really focus on helping people kind of get to the resolution part of a problem that's just been in the workplace for a really long time.
And it's relevant for every organization. So this is fantastic. I think there's
Absolutely.
a huge need for this. Now, I kind of queued up the next question by saying that you're going to be starting a crowdfunding campaign. But in the next question, are you also seeking partnerships as well as funding? Tell us about that.
Great. Yeah. So we're in the middle of raising our seed round. We just finished some angel investments earlier on in the company's history. And we're very excited that we're going to be launching on the Republic platform, which is a great platform for crowdfunding. There are, what I really like about it is it takes the time to highlight female founders, minority founders, and just really the diversity that's in the startup world that we don't really often see when we look at what traditional VCs are funding. So for us, it was just such a great natural fit. But we're also really working on a lot of really great partnerships as well. And we really like partnerships where we work with organizations that allow us to reach and kind of support the non-office environment workers. So like, people in the construction industry or the restaurant industry or union workers, because we think that there's, obviously workplace conflict there. And just because of the nature of the way that they work, it's harder for them to find resolution. And we also work with a lot of diversity and inclusion organizations.
Well, excellent. You're focused on two critical areas, diversity and inclusion and workplace conflict, which, as we know, isn't exclusive to any one industry. It's ubiquitous.
Yes.
So great stuff. And one other thing, I know you're being modest, but SheWorks, one of the driving forces behind Republic.co crowdfunding campaign, recently gave you an award. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. So SheWorks likes to spotlight female founders, which I think is fantastic. And they have spotlighted myself and People First as one of the companies that they think is up and coming, and really excited about that. For me, it's a very special award because it really allows me to sort of tell the female founder story to a very broad and diverse group of people.
Congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment, and we're looking forward to seeing more with that. Now let's dig into People First. Tell us about your company's mission and vision and what your plans are to change the world.
So we created People First to help organizations and employees resolve workplace conflict. There's a couple of really interesting numbers out there that I think people feel but don't really understand the magnitude of. And that is that 65% of people say that they've experienced some kind of workplace discrimination and harassment, but only 10% of them are reporting it. So that means 90% of workplace conflict goes unreported. And so we saw an opportunity to kind of change this whole system and dynamic using technology that I think everybody wants to see change, but they just don't really know how.
And it's all about that, right? You change what you can measure. If you don't know
Exactly.
it, how are you going to change it? This is not your first venture, so let's talk about maybe some of the skills that make you a good leader.
I think that really good leaders really need to recognize that their job is to make other people successful. When I first started off, it was all about making our customers happy. If you really want to be successful, it's all about how happy your customers are.
Well, that kind of cues up one of the other questions I was going to ask, which is, why do you do it?
It's so really funny. Everyone, my family often asks me that. They're like, "Why do you work so hard? Why are you always tackling these very challenging topics?" And I think, for me, I grew up in a very culturally diverse environment. I'm from Guyana, which is in the West Indies in South America. There are 5 races that live together kind of in this very small country. And then so I've always had, I grew up in Brooklyn, in New York, in the US, and I've always had diversity around me. When I got to the workplace, I realized that it was very homogenous and that a lot of the systems that are in place in the workplace are very archaic and they don't really support diversity. I'm hoping to change a lot of that.
Oh, there's so much opportunity. Now, as a change agent, Kamael, what's the hardest thing you've ever had to do?
So the hardest thing I've ever had to do was actually leave a role where my goals and values didn't really align with what the organization was about. And I think that that was really difficult because I'm a person that really likes to tackle very complex problems. And, I don't mind a tough challenge. But when my value system is compromised and when I feel like I'm amongst, leadership and people where we just don't see eye to eye on that, sometimes you just have to step away and out.
I can understand and appreciate that. Now tell us a little bit about the competitive edge that you have at People First.
For People First, what we really wanted to do was create something that facilitates resolution for both the employee and the employer. And there's nothing out there that really does that right now. We don't leave either party sort of hanging, if you will, in the midst of a problem.
Got it. Now, on the bad days, because everybody has a few, what gives you the strength to keep going?
I have a really great set of friends and family, and they don't take me too seriously or life too seriously. So it's really nice to have that kind of when you work on very intense topics, to have, very jovial friends and family, and they help me kind of refill my tank whenever it gets empty. I also know, this as I've gotten older, which is that a bad day always ends and then a new day begins.
There you go. Staying positive. That's what we all need, especially these days when times are so
Especially
challenging.
these days.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Anything holding you back from being wildly successful?
Well, I think from People First, perspective, we are just entering the market and our product is a little over a year old. And obviously we are working in these very uncertain times for organizations in terms of how they're structured. So we have had to really think on our feet and be partners to our customers in ways that I don't think we ever imagined before. But it's tough being a young company, and you never have enough cash, you never have enough resources, and especially when you're tackling a social problem, the problem is so big that some days you just never feel like you're going to be wildly successful at it.
Now, all right. If I gave you a magic wand and said, Kamael, you get to change one thing from your past, what would be different?
I don't think I would change anything, to be really honest. I think that we bloom and sort of blossom as human beings when we stay present. And so I often look back and I'm like, oh, I wish sometimes I would have said this in a meeting, I would have done this, or I would have chosen to do this with my career or that. But then I think, oh, it's just all a perfect, set of ingredients for the best possible dish that I could ever put together, because I feel like I've had a very, fortunate and good life. So I'm not sure I'd change too much, Maybe a bad hairstyle here and there.
Oh, we've had those.
I don't know in the past, but I think that's about it.
All right, then.
But hair grows,
It does, although slowly, but it does. Yes, right. It brings more change. What book do you recommend we read?
I have 2 for you. So one is not necessarily a book. It's Letters from Birmingham Jail by Martin Luther King Jr. I think that people don't necessarily get everything that's packed into how rich that letter is. And I read that sort of academically years and years ago in school. And ever so often I've come back to it every couple of years, and there's always something new and relevant to what's happening in the world today that I, find in it. So I think it's just a very timeless read. And the second one is The Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. And I think that it's particularly important because we're living focus on social media and sort of how you look to the world. And that can be very sort of exhausting, intimidating. And I think this, for me, was very much around how to stay true to who you are.
Kamael, what do you want people to know?
I want people to know that difficult conversations and tough topics need to be talked about if we want to get to a more inclusive and equitable world.
All right. Now, we know that your campaign for crowdfunding is going to be running beginning the month of June. So, and that's at republic.co. People can look for the People First crowdfunding opportunity. But is there any other way our audience can help you?
Yes. So I would just say, please just reach out to me. Like, we love to hear from people that are passionate about this topic and that are interested in partnering or using our product in their organization. Tell us about partnership opportunities, share a story. You can do that like kind of on our social media, but you can also just reach out to myself and my co-founders personally. We answer actually every email. So you'll get something back from us.
Excellent. Well, we'll make sure we direct people over to the People First, all the social sites. Last question as we wrap up here. Best
Mhm.
question, Kamael. If your shoe style was your personality, are you a boots, stilettos, sneakers, flats, or flip-flops kind of gal?
Okay. Well, I definitely wouldn't be stilettos or flip-flops because I'm terribly clumsy and those just seem like a recipe for disaster. I think, to be honest, I think I would go barefoot and kind of like feel the grass and nature. When I was a kid, I used to run around without shoes. I think my parents told me I would take my shoes and throw them somewhere and just refuse to wear shoes. And then, I think if, you step on some glass, it just makes your feet stronger. So I'd go barefoot. Maybe some flats on occasion.
All right. Well, I can identify that. As a child, I walked across bumblebees often in my bare feet. And so, yeah, I suffered the wrath of bees many times.
But now you've got tough feet, right? And a tough personality for it.
You bet. I learned the hard way, as we all do,
Yeah.
right? Kamael, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure getting to know a little bit about you and about People First. And we wish you every success with your crowdfunding campaign on republic.co.
Thank you so much. Thank you for doing this as well and for spotlighting women that are working in the tech industry and beyond. I really appreciate it.
And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?